Hi guys, welcome back to JC Jog Support. Today we're going to look at top tips for paper 3 in Edexcel B GCSE, your third paper. And here, if you want to just take a screenshot, I will put this on Instagram as well. But here are my kind of like top tips. I think I've got 6, the last one's quite long, of what we should be doing. So, number 1, make sure that you're reading the resource booklet, okay? Straight away, as soon as you start reading it, you will know whether it's going to be on tropical rainforest forests or whether it's going to be on taiga, and you will be able to think about the stuff that you've revised for that bit of the unit, the biosphere stuff and the forests information. So make sure you spend about 10 minutes reading through it. It's really, really important that you know where the kind of decision is going and what you've got to talk about. Number 2, annotate the resources. The resource booklet is yours. You can annotate it. If you've got a highlighter in the exam with you, you can highlight it. We did have a bit of a discussion in my lessons whether you're allowed a highlighter or not. But if you have got one with you, then highlight the hell out of that paper and highlight any key terms. They've given you each of the resources for a reason. So as you read each resource, maybe highlight a bit of it or annotate a bit of it, thinking about what is it that that resource is telling you, because you will be directed to use it and you will have to use it in section D with your final decision. Number 3. When you're reading through the questions, make sure that you highlight the command words. I would do that. I'd have a read of it, I'd take my time, and I'd make sure that I know what the command word is saying. So the first sections, section A and section B, they're mostly describe and explain. Section A is only worth about 8 marks, section B is only worth about 8 marks. So a lot of those are just retrieval of AO1 knowledge. So make sure that you describe, make sure that you explain if it asks for that, and make sure you don't leave anything out as well. Next one is make sure where possible you use the resource in your answer. Okay, this is particularly important in section C when you will get 2 8 markers and there will be assess 8 markers. You must remember to use the resource. The resources are there for a reason. So if it directs you to a resource, make sure you use the resource in your answer. Number 5, in the 2 assess questions, make sure that you are assessing. I find these a little bit tricky, if I'm honest with you, sometimes to know what to assess. I'm not going to lie to you, but obviously assess means weigh up. So there must be in the question 2 ideas or 2 differences, 2 similarities, 2 things that you need to look at. So just make sure you say to the examiner what's the best and what's the worst, or what's the most important, what's the least important. With this, it's the same with the other 8 markers in all the other papers. It does not matter which factor or which point you say is more or less important. The important thing is that you say it. Now, I would do ongoing assessment and then I would write a little conclusion to say this factor's more important or this factor's got the biggest impact, whatever it is that the question's asking. If you're not sure, just try as best you can to think, what are they asking me to assess? What are they asking me to weigh up? And again, make sure that you use the resource in those answers. And if you do that, you've at least got 6 out of 8. Now, in section D, which is your final section, you'll normally be given 3 options. Option 1 is generally talking about not disturbing the environment at all. And it's not necessarily the most sustainable, but it's the most ecological. So that one will generally say, don't carry on exploiting the biome. Make sure that you protect the biome. The second option is normally the middle ground, where you do a little bit of protecting or keeping it as it is and having some economic development. And the third option is often the one where you kind of like carry on with what you're doing to an extreme and carry on exploiting. Now, generally speaking, the middle option is sometimes the best option to take. Not always. You can justify either of them and you can pick any of the 3. The examiner doesn't mind. In the mark scheme, it always tells us that to accept any justified option. But the middle option sometimes gives you a better thing to write about and it gives you more to write about. So maybe pick that one. Now, there is a format to this and you need to listen very carefully. The first paragraph or the first couple of paragraphs will be your longest, and that will be you justifying your choice of that option. And you must use the resources. That's what they're there for. Use the resources and your other knowledge from either of those biomes to explain why you've decided to pick that particular option. Next, you need to come up with the limitations of that option. It's the one that you've picked, but there will be limitations to it. What's the problem with it? Okay, so come up with a limitation to that option. And thirdly, your third section is you have to tell the examiner why you didn't pick the other two. You have to say that. So it's really, really important that you give yourself at least 15 minutes to do this last question, at least. It's worth 12 marks. I think if I remember correctly, it's an 8 marker with 4 spag. So you must come up with the 3 sections in order to get the mark. So tell the examiner why you've picked the option, use resources, then say what the limitation of that option is, what's its downfall, what's the thing about it that may not work. So if it's an option to, you know, log the area sustainable or use it sustainably, it might be to the detriment of the local people. So the local people in the short term could lose economic benefits from not providing, you know, jobs to them or whatever it is. I don't know what it's going to be. Or there might be an environmental issue with it, etc. Then say what you didn't like about the other two. So this is going to be quite a long answer, but there is a structure to it. Okay, make sure that you do all of those things. Please don't run out of time. If you are running out of time and you've only got 10 minutes left, bullet point your answers, but use the same format. Say why you've picked the question or the option, what the limitation is, and then what the problems were with the other two. But just write them in bullet point form. You might lose a little bit in spag, but you'll gain marks if you finish the question. Now, don't lose time, if you see what I mean. Don't think you're going to gain time, I should say, by not reading through the resource. You really will save time reading through the resource and doing this. It's kind of false economy to not read through it because you won't really know what the questions are going, and it will help you at the end because you've really looked through those resources. And doing all of that should give you a massive, massive boost for paper 3. You should be able to smash paper 3. It's going to be, I think this year, I could be completely wrong, I think it's going to be on tropical rainforest, and the reason is the last 2 years it's been on Taiga, and I think they're going to give you a tropical rainforest. So, you know, don't blame me if it isn't, but that's what I think it might be. And make sure that you get to the last question and make sure you answer that option. So good luck, everybody, and yeah, I'll see you soon.